Okay, so let's get started. Welcome, everyone. I'd say good morning, but I know for many of you on the call, it's very late in your evening where you are. I'm glad to be talking to you. This is the third book reading and conversation that we've done in this series. The first one was on LGBTQIA life and rights in Mongolia, and the second one was on feminism. And now I'm excited today to have Azza here to talk to us about urban planning and pollution in Mongolia. So a little bit of background about the project. When I was living in Mongolia, I was meeting all of these super interesting activists who are just working so hard to make their country a better, more democratic place. And world perceptions of Mongolia are so woefully out of date. I mean, when I told people I was going there, they had, the only concept in their mind, I think, was the Gobi Desert and Genghis Khan. And they tell me, well, if you can get electricity, do they have internet there? Maybe you can send an email to let us know that you're okay. And the reality, for anyone who's been to UB or has lived in UB, you know that the reality of modern Mongolia is so much different than what people think it is. So Young Mongols started as a video series because I didn't want to tell other people's stories, but I did want to put Mongolians in front of other people to tell their own stories, so that people could get an idea of, not only modern Mongolian issues, but what modern Mongolians look and sound like, and what their personalities are like. And so it started as a video project. I've just come out with a book. And the book, I wanted to get a bit deeper into some of these issues and give some more background. And so you'll see in the reading portion of today's event what that looks like. And but also have the book still serve as a platform, rather than me telling people's stories, to have them mostly in their own words. So the book is very heavy on quotes. And Azza is one of the activists who's featured in the urban planning and pollution chapter of the book. She is the founder of Breathe Mongolia, which is an NGO it's an international NGO that's focused on bringing science and activism to Mongolia's dire pollution problem. She also is maybe you follow Mongolia Live on social media platforms. It's also about bringing a different story, an updated story of Mongolia to the world. And in her day job, Azza is doing data things at IBM. She can explain more to you about them if you'd like.
Analyst at IBM, yeah.
And she's an analyst at IBM. So, and Azza and I have never met in person, though we've been talking like this for, I think, years now. Hopefully someday we'll get a chance to meet in person.
We're in the same country now.
Yeah, now that we're in the same country. So for today's reading, it was a bit tricky to choose which passages to read, because for someone who hasn't been to Mongolia, there's a lot of background that's needed to understand the country's pollution problem. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to read 3 different passages of the book, and I'll start by giving you some background, and then we'll turn more to Azza's own personal story and her work. And I just want to give a disclaimer. I've been recording these sessions so that when people miss them because of time zones and stuff, I can put them up online. So I do ask you, we're going to open up to questions at the end. If you ask a question, I ask you to consent to having if you don't want your likeness shared, you can turn your camera off, but at least having your voice and your question shared in the recording. So without further ado, I'll start reading from the book. Mongolia's modern-day capital, Ulan Bator, was established in 1639, but not in the manner that most cities in the world were at the time. The city, at the time named Urga, or Palace, was a mobile monastery town, the location changing as its nomadic residents moved their several thousand homes in tandem. In 1778, the town settled in its current location in the valley below the Bothan mountain, where the Tul and Selby rivers run parallel. In 1924, after the city came under the control of Soviet Russia, it was renamed Ulan Bator, meaning Red Hero. Centuries later, Ulan Bator remains a city in one location, but traditional movable dwellings continue to be used widely by its residents. Today, the city is home to more than half of the country's citizens. To say that it is overcrowded is an understatement. The population of the city has grown by 70% in the last 20 years. Ulan Bator was designed to accommodate about 500,000 residents, but now is home to 1.7 million. That the city was designed for a much smaller population is evidenced by constant standstill traffic and congestion. In an effort to ameliorate the problem, for a much smaller population is evident. Oh, I copied and pasted something twice. Sorry. In an effort to ameliorate the problem, the government periodically assigns driving dates by license plate number. If you have an odd numbered plate, you can drive on certain days, an even numbered plate the others. Parking is chaotic and space is at a premium. A cottage industry has cropped up, producing decorative handcrafted placards with drivers' phone numbers to be displayed in their cars' front and rear windows. More often than not, when parking, Mongolians will block someone in or be blocked in by someone, necessitating that the inconvenienced party call the number on display to ask the other driver to drop whatever they are doing and come out and move their car. When thinking of Mongolia, most conjure images of vast empty spaces, not urban congestion. Mongolia presents an interesting paradox. It is the least densely populated country in the world, and yet more than half of its citizens live cramped into 0.2% of its land. Several reasons have led to the influx of people to the country's capital. The pursuit of better opportunities, harsh weather conditions in part brought on by climate change, and response to a land law. While there are certainly great joys of nomadic living, surviving as a herder is difficult and is only getting harder. Living a nomadic life means living without plumbing and electricity, though solar panels are opening up new possibilities for off-grid electrification. It means moving your home regularly to find fresh grazing pasture for your animals and working every day from sunup to sundown, herding and tending to livestock, which provide basic subsistence. It means a lack of access to quality education and medical services if one falls ill. It means, quite simply, leaving your warm bed at night and braving sub-zero temperatures to relieve yourself. Nomadic life has become more challenging even for those who are accustomed to its difficulties. Since 1940, Mongolia's annual mean temperature has risen 2.4%, leading to drier weather and more frequent dust storms. These drier conditions mean fewer grasslands on which to graze animals. The frequency and severity of winter weather has also increased, leading to more dzuds, or severe winters that come after summer droughts and cause extensive animal death. In January 2018 alone, dzud conditions caused the death of more than 700,000 animals, making it difficult for herder families to eat and earn their livelihoods. These challenges have made city life more appealing. In recent years, an average of 68,000 people annually have moved to Ulan Bator in search of a better life. In 2017, the mayor of Ulan Bator banned immigration from the countryside to the city, except for those requiring long-term medical treatment. In practice, however, this sort of ban is difficult to enforce in the Mongolian context. So I'll stop there. There's a lot of information, so I've read you some of this history of migration and environmental issues, but Azza, can you talk to us now about how these particular issues that I've mentioned have created a pollution problem?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, if you can, some of the numbers that you mentioned are crazy, right? Half of the entire population of the entire country lives on like less than 1% of the land. It's just ridiculous, right? And the city, the capital city of Ulan Bator, was planned for 500,000 people, but now the population is triple the planned size. So it's not only like a problem with the Gir district or only like the heating problem or energy problem. It's like this whole arena of different moving parts like energy, infrastructure, and even like economic development. The main reason that people are moving into the city is that not only because of climate change, but also they don't have opportunities for employment, for education. So when these high number of local migrants are coming into the capital city, Not everyone can afford an apartment, and also not everyone wants to live in an apartment. We're used to living in our gears wherever we want and just like walk out to the open space whenever we want. So that's definitely a challenge. And given our temperature, extreme weather temperature, especially in the winter, when these migrants come into the city and they're not connected to the grid or don't live in an apartment, they're on their own, just like they live in the rural countryside. They have to depend on other resources, other sources to manage their heating, manage their sanitation and everything. So they have to have access to some kind of fuel, and the cheapest and most affordable and the most available one has been raw coal. So an average family burns 3.5 tons of coal a year. I just cannot imagine this number, but it's been, for somebody outside of Mongolia, when they think about like, oh, we just have like 3 tons of coal sitting in our backyard and we just put it in our home, and without any filters, we just put it in a metal stove and breathe whatever comes out of it inside our home. And then we breathe whatever comes out of it outside our home and throughout the city. Man, children, you know, everybody smells this and breathes this in and takes all of those toxins in majority of the year. It's not like we're Australia or Hawaii, you know. We burn it like 7-8 months out of the year. And imagine breathing that every single day for 7-8 years. You can't really it's hard to calculate, right? The health impact. And that's why like pneumonia is #2 killer of our children in Mongolia. And also like when I was just reading the 2019 report from our national health statistics, 75% of all the acute bronchitis and pneumonia and serious respiratory illnesses are children under 5. And when I looked at world statistics, like 30% of children die because of pneumonia, but in Mongolia, they're like 75%. It is just unfathomable. And obviously, I haven't lived in Mongolia for so long, but I'm still impacted by it whenever I go there, and my family also is impacted by it. I had to literally drag an air purifier into a labor room when I was there with my nephew. He was about to be born, and I couldn't breathe in that labor room. And I had to ask my parents to bring an air purifier into a private hospital labor room. So that's how bad it is. And I just don't want our little newborns breathing a packet of cigarettes as soon as they're born, even inside a hospital.
You mentioned the Ger district. Can you explain what that is for people who aren't that familiar with Mongolia?
Yeah, so Ger district is an area of our city where there's no structured urban planning. So okay, let's start with the Ger. Ger is a traditional home of Mongolians, and it's been used for centuries and centuries. So we usually live in that portable circle housing that we can easily take down and move around with it everywhere we go. So Mongolians who are moving into the capital city from the countryside, they bring their gears into the city and they just camp out or they put it up wherever they are needed. Oftentimes they should receive permit, but sometimes they don't go ahead and receive permit. And because it's just a wooden structure with felt coverings and not much insulation, there's lots of heat loss and it's not the best energy efficient infrastructure. And in -40 degrees, you have to be burning quite a bit of everything to keep warm. So because the Ger districts are not connected to the grid and not a lot of them have like electrical heaters or other heating solutions, they just put a metal stove in the middle and burn mostly raw coal. Or nowadays they burn improved coal, but coal is the main fuel to heat up Ger districts. Right. And there are like over 200,000 of them.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think often when people talk about Ulaanbaatar's pollution problem, it's attributed primarily, and I think unfairly, to the Gare district, when in reality it's an urban planning issue. And I want to read to you a bit now about Ulaanbaatar's central heating system. I think that Soviet heating systems are quite different from what most of us in the rest of the world are used to, unless you're also from a Soviet, post-Soviet country. And I'm a bit of a nerd, so I find this fascinating, and I'm going to read to you about heating infrastructure now. But I have to assume if you're tuned into this discussion, you're also a bit of a nerd, and hopefully you'll find this interesting as well. So to say that Mongolia is cold is an understatement. Ulaanbaatar is the coldest capital in the world, with average winter lows of -40 degrees Celsius/Fahrenheit. The two systems are the same at that temperature. Mongolians can throw a cup of boiling water out their window and it will freeze into snow before it reaches the ground. They measure the winter's progress with a traditional system developed by nomadic herders known as 9x9. There are 9 sets of 9 days with a corresponding measure of coldness for each. In the first set, Eirig, which is fermented horse's milk, freezes. In the second set, vodka freezes. In the third set, the tail of an ox freezes and falls off. In the fourth set, the horns of an ox freeze and fall off. The dismemberment of animals by frigid temperatures marks the winter's nadir, and from there, things begin to warm up, eventually the tops of the hills becoming visible, and then the ground becoming damp once more. Anyone who's ever survived a winter in a former Soviet city is likely familiar with a system that is alien to most Western nations: district heating. Russian inventor Franz Sangali invented the radiator in 1855, and later the Soviet Union ran with the idea, developing a method to guarantee heat to its city dwellers. Beginning in the 1930s, the Soviet Union installed district heating in cities throughout its territory. In these systems, heat is centrally produced in a power plant and is then transported through massive underground piping infrastructure to individual apartment buildings, where it fills people's radiators and warms their homes. In contrast, in the United States and some European countries, heating your home is an individual responsibility. Homeowners install a variety of heating devices, most commonly furnaces and boilers, and purchase gas or electricity from utility companies to use these devices to heat the air in their homes. In Ulan Bator, coal-powered plants produce the heat that is transported through its 130 kilometers of pipes to bring heat to city residents. When searching for apartments, Mongolians ask around to know whether buildings are in hot or cold parts of town, because the system functions better in some areas than in others. Indeed, Ulan Bator's system experiences a 17% heat loss in transmission and network transmission due to rapidly deteriorating infrastructure. For comparison, Helsinki, Finland, and Stockholm, Sweden, 2 other cities that use district heating systems, only lose 6 and 7% of heating and transmission, respectively. Heat is not only wasted in its journey to consumers' homes, but is unnecessarily lost once it arrives at its destination. Many Ulan Bator residents live in old buildings that do not have well-insulated walls and roofs and often have poorly sealed windows. Perhaps most shocking to a foreigner living in Mongolia in a Mongolian apartment is that radiators generally do not have control valves or thermostats that allow users to determine the temperature inside their apartment and reduce their consumption. In Ulan Bator, if your apartment is too hot, you solve the problem by opening your window. In most other places, consumers are encouraged to lower their personal energy consumption because they pay for the amount of energy that they consume. However, this is not the case with Mongolia's district heating system. Ulan Bator does not use building level metering or consumption-based billing that would require individuals to pay for what they use. Residents instead pay based on what is considered a normal consumption rate for the square footage of their apartment. Under the system, apartment owners have little incentive to make costly renovations, such as installing new radiators or insulated windows, because it won't result in any personal financial savings. Mongolia's government-owned sorry. Sorry, that's my dog. Mongolia's, government-owned energy companies operate at a loss. Ulan Bator does not charge residents enough for the energy that it supplies, which contributes to the distress and decay of the system. Apartment residents only pay an average of 80 cents per gig, that's, sorry, US dollars, 0.8 US dollars per gigajoule. This is 10 to 20 times less than other Eastern European cities such as Warsaw, Poland, or Vilnius, Lithuania, and considerably less than heating costs in Western Europe. In order for the government to merely break even on the cost of the heat it provides, it would have to raise the tariffs 130%. Its flaws aside, Ulan Bator has vastly outgrown its outdated system. It is only able to provide heat to about 2/5 of the population, approximately 120,000 households. The residents of Ulan Bator's Ger districts are literally left out in the cold. It's 220,000 households forced to burn coal briquettes, unrefined coal, trash, anything they can to keep from freezing in a brutal winter that lasts from October to April. What's more, because the government is subsidizing its district heating system, Ger district residents spend far more to heat their homes manually. The annual cost for a 50 square meter apartment connected to this district heating system will only cost a resident about $72 annually, whereas it costs a Ger district family $200 to $500 per year to heat a similarly sized abode. The result of 220,000 households burning things to keep warm is a cloud of coal smoke blanketing the city that is so thick in places that residents can't see across the street. The result is days when pollution is so thick that school is canceled because it's not safe for children to go outside. The result is a recorded pollution level 133 times higher than World Health Organization recommendations. The result is a population that is choking to death underneath a black sky. So I've gotten a bit poetic in my description of what UV's pollution problem is like, but Azza, can you fill us in on some of the facts and figures about pollution and how it's affecting people in the city? I know you answered a bit of that already, but I'll ask you to give us some more information there.
Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned, like pneumonia is the #2 killer for children under 5, right? And respiratory, like every single year, respiratory diseases have our children suffer and go into have them hospitalized every single year. And even last year, like 400 people died from pneumonia. And throughout the country, our #1 killer is cardiovascular disease, stroke and heart disease. And it's not even like of the elders, but people over 35. It's ridiculous. And a lot of Mongolians don't understand that air pollution affects not only their respiratory system and causes bronchitis and pneumonia and all lung cancer, but they don't know that it causes stroke, cardiovascular disease, or it affects their nervous system, or it even affects the stomach and liver cancer. And we rank #1 in the world in those cancers. So we're trying really hard to educate people that air pollution does not discriminate by gender and age. It affects everyone, and we are extremely vulnerable to air pollution and its health impact. And especially with COVID these days, you know, there's a study that our children who live in the urban areas, they have 40% less lung function than kids outside the city. So imagine, you know, kids or anybody getting COVID with that compromised immune system, with the risk of cardiovascular disease and all other immune suppressing diseases, and then taking COVID, it's going to be deadly. We're lucky that we don't have community transmission and we're controlling it so far. So we have to really keep up this good work at the same time. But we lagged as well. We stopped wearing masks. What I found super interesting is that we've been trying so hard to convince people to wear masks for the last decade or so. And they only started wearing masks because of COVID. It's just ridiculous. So there's a lot of work to do because our population is very vulnerable. We have major chronic diseases that are directly related to, linked to air pollution. We have major cancers that are directly linked to air pollution. So for example, based on the 2019 Statistics Committee report, our lung cancer numbers go up after the pollution season. our hospitalizations are directly correlated with the increase and decrease of our particulate matter. So if PM 2.5 is high, our hospitalization goes up, and our hospitals are overcrowded. We don't have the infrastructure, not only to house and employ all these citizens, but we don't have the infrastructure to hospitalize and treat all these sick people, and especially children. I was visiting, I was in Mongolia last November, and I had to go to the hospital right away because my little nephew, he went to the kindergarten for the first time, and he caught some kind of very nasty flu. He was vomiting and he was super sick, and the first thing that the doctors would give him is all kinds of antibiotics and super strong medications. And he recovered slowly, like after 2 weeks or something. And then as soon as I got back home, he was back in the hospital. So it's just heartbreaking. It affects our, families. It affects the livelihood of our families as well. Parents can't go to their work if they have to like drag their kids from hospitals, from private to state hospitals. And it affects our GDP as well and our productivity. So it's not just a little seasonal health problem, it's a huge developmental problem. And we have 10% of world's coal reserve, and we're so dependent on it that we're not willing to give it up. We're not willing to invest in renewable infrastructure or batteries or anything else that is more sustainable and healthier for the climate and our people. So it's definitely a huge challenge that we have to attack from different sides.
Absolutely. Thank you. So now we can finally turn more to Aza's personal story and learn a bit about the organization that she founded. So Azjargal Tsogtsaikhan doesn't live in Mongolia. She lives in New York City, where she works for IBM, although we all know she's in Michigan right now. More than 10,000 kilometers away, the pollution still affects her life. In the winter of 2017, several members of Aza's family living in Ulan Bator were hospitalized for pneumonia. Her father, then her sister-in-law, and then her grandmother all needed emergency care. As people kept calling to tell her that more friends and relatives had fallen ill, Aza felt helpless and scared. When she heard about protests happening in Ulan Bator, she knew she needed to do something herself to try to find a way to help those suffering back home. Aza called other Mongolians living abroad and asked them to join her for a demonstration in Times Square. She and others dressed up in dils, traditional Mongolian formal wear. Formal dils are long, often brightly colored silk robes held together by a sash tied at the waist and an embroidered closure at the neck. In her hands, Aza held a watchdog, a blue silk scarf that symbolizes purity and compassion and is offered in greeting by Mongolians at formal or ceremonial gatherings. On her face, Aza wore a gas mask. Aza and her fellow demonstrators wanted to tell the world that Mongolians are dying. The unusual scene in Times Square attracted attention and helped people learn about what is happening in Mongolia. A video of the protest became popular on YouTube, prompting mixed reactions from Mongolians. Most were happy that their plight was receiving international attention and hoped that it would force their own government to act. Others were upset that their country, which received so little media attention, was being introduced to international audiences in a negative way. Since the demonstration, Aza has turned one-off action into a structured organization. She has recruited scientists and other experts across disciplines from around the world to form Breathe Mongolia, a US-registered nonprofit. Through her organization, Aza is able to have an impact on her home country from across the world. While Breathe Mongolia has thus far been using social media to organize actions and disseminate information, they are getting ready to launch a website that is poised to be the largest repository of information on Mongolia on the internet. Aza, who also runs Mongolia Live, the largest foreign-facing social media site about Mongolia, is great at using the internet to share and organize information. As individuals and organizations try to do their part to tackle Mongolia's pollution problem, it's led to a lot of one-off projects that have no continuation or impact in groups that overlap or don't coordinate. The Breathe Mongolia website will serve as a collaboration platform, a comprehensive knowledge center so that activists can see who is doing what to combat pollution, what has been tried, what has failed, and access resources that already exist so that they don't waste their time and funding recreating what's been done before. More than just coordinating people, we want to instill the mentality in our citizens that they can take individual action, says Aza. We want to teach people how to act as watchdogs. Aza gives the example of air purifiers in schools. Ulan Bator kindergartens were all given air purifiers by the government to make the air safe for children, but often filters aren't changed, or in some cases, school administrators steal the machines for use in their own homes. Breathe Mongolia can't go to every kindergarten in Ulan Bator to monitor that air purifiers are in classrooms and being run consistently and correctly, but they can train and empower a coalition of parents to do so. Backed with data and training, parents can go into their children's schools when they pick them up at the end of the day to check that the filters are present, the air filters are present, using fresh filters, and being run throughout the school day. They can demand accountability. The Breathe Mongolia website will list all the anti-pollution projects undertaken by the Mongolian government and international organizations. It will include detailed information on spending, expected completion dates, and analysis of project impacts. The all-volunteer Breathe Mongolia team can tap into its network of scientists to help with assessments and provide translators to help make documents accessible in multiple languages. My main purpose is to establish this platform where experts and scientists have a voice and their knowledge is curated into digestible and actionable information, Aza says. Once people are enlightened and informed, they'll know what to do. So Aza, it's been quite a while since I interviewed you for this book. Can you fill us in on what Breathe Mongolia has been up to and what sort of progress you're making in UB?
Sure. So our movement started as an activism creative campaign, but then we realized we need to be more organized than that to bring lasting and systemic change. So we became a nonprofit, a tech nonprofit registered in the US last February. And then now we have a team from 7 different countries. They're all volunteers from different professional backgrounds like air pollution, atmospheric chemistry, public health, policy, research, renewable energy, policy analyst, or urban planning, or IT and software engineering. So we have multiple professionals working from 3 different continents, even in Belgium, Hungary, India. IBM from India is volunteering for us. So we work around the clock. If somebody goes to bed, somebody picks it up the next, as soon as they wake up. So we've been quite busy. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Sure.
I wanted to show our website. Oh, I think it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, yeah, I might have. I don't know if I can.
Or are you able to share your screen on your side?
Yeah, let me pull up the Breathe Mongolia website and I will do just that. But you can keep going and it'll take me a minute to get it.
Sure. So since getting organized as a nonprofit, we've done quite a bit of work. We worked with the investigative journalists of Mongolia, Mongolian Center for Investigative Journalism, because in the winter, our government said that our pollution went down by 50%. It was before the improved coal introduction and raw coal ban, and we were like, oh, that's weird. Nothing changed. We haven't done anything, and you're saying improved coal. I mean, you're saying pollution went down 50%. So we invested in some pollution sensors, and we worked with investigative journalists, and we measured we collected our own data, and we realized that, after analyzing and cleaning up the data, we came to a conclusion that the pollution didn't really come down. It's just the way that it's calculated and presented to the public changed. So we wrote an article about it on data journalism, and even we spread it to the media. And then we worked with the National Committee of Statistics. It was our first collaboration with the government office. and we translated their air pollution and health impact report into English language. All volunteers from different countries once again, you know, chipped in, and we put it together and we handed off to the National Statistics Committee. It was printed out and presented to different scholars and researchers and experts at the UNICEF Air Pollution Conference last November. So it was pretty cool to see that our work, you know, we made like a tangible impact. We are planning to also translate and make even more interactive and user-friendly content for the 2020 report that just came out recently. And speaking of UNICEF, we collaborated with UNICEF and curated an exhibition called Sky Burial by Hisco. Hisco is the one who painted the image for Audrey's book, Young Mongols. And it's actually a image of a woman archer, and he painted it during Nadam, and I went actually and interviewed him about it. And he's been an avid supporter of our work and an activist for us. He painted 2 murals in Australia, in Melbourne, and we made beautiful videos and to raise awareness. And we plan to paint more murals all over the world, raising awareness about the issue, because the world doesn't talk about air pollution enough. And it's deadliest above, you know, any other diseases, because we cannot choose not to breathe. And majority of the world breathes, like 90% of the world breathes polluted air. So we've done some creative work, and also what else do we do? Yeah, so most importantly, right, we have launched our website. And it is supposed to be the one-stop shop for all things air pollution. Currently, we have released a resource page where different handbooks, different reports and research papers or policy documents can be uploaded by different stakeholders. And for example, I'm sure you noticed, Aubrey, when you were researching air pollution, you had to like go through multiple websites, right? And or different sources that sometimes some information was available only in English and some information was only available in Mongolian. And you had to probably ask somebody to translate it for you, and you just have to, like, I don't know, spend hours on it to understand the whole issue and see the big picture. So we're trying to make it easier for everyone, the public and the researchers and policymakers, or everyone who is interested in understand this issue, you know, understand it on a very basic level. If they want to go deeper, we have the deeper, more sciencey and more technical information. And then we have the sources of that information. So we want to always educate the public with data and science and fact-backed information. So we have a platform where people can upload whatever they want to let the public know, especially, but when it comes to like scientific report, it has to be peer-reviewed and high quality, and our scientists and research experts will vet out the most high quality content. And because COVID happened, we had to pivot a little bit. And because COVID is a respiratory disease, you know, mostly we created a banner with the latest statistics for COVID. And soon enough, we'll be launching a specific COVID focused page with all the key events that are happening in Mongolia, sorry. And so it's in production right now. It should be launched. Once it's launched, we'll let you guys know, actually, because it's important for us, for us Mongolians to learn to keep our decision makers accountable and to look at an issue with the bigger picture, you know, with a very objective perspective compared to like this very myopic, polarized view. So, for example, with COVID, with this key events timeline, people should be able to see, like, okay, when did we receive, loan and grant from which organizations and how it's being used. It's going to be this watchdog platform, and we'll do the same with air pollution policy. We just released an article that went through all of that for COVID, and we received like 500 million US dollars in grants and loans from organizations, international and local organizations, and even the public, right? And the media and the public, they are making a huge noise about it. And they're waiting for different reports from the government agencies to tell us like how those funds are being used. So we want to do the same for air pollution as well. We have a policy analysis team. So we're breaking down, there are like 20 plus policy documents that are related to air pollution. So we're breaking down all of them clause by clause and identifying the actionable clauses and their targets and saying, okay, we promise to have, the green development policy says that we'll have 20% of our energy from renewable energy. Do we have it by 2020? There are some milestones. 2020 is a big milestone year. So we'll do policy analysis. We are launching also a health impact page where we go deep into the health impacts. As I said before, people don't realize people don't realize it's more than a respiratory disease-causing issue. It impacts our whole body system and all demographics. So we'll have very educational information on health. And most importantly, also on our page, if you look at our website, we have this super beautiful map, pollution map. If you go to azjargal.mn or AirVisual or any other air pollution monitoring platform, you will only see number, and you will only see like maybe very vague, very vague actionable instructions. But we wanted to make it very user-friendly for our users. So our pollution map has live real-time data, and it has the rankings of different stations within Mongolia. So you can see which district is the highest for that day. And also you can see where we rank in the world. Right now, we're doing all right. We're ranking number 70. And if you go to our website, and Dubai is high up there, Santiago, Chile, Pakistan up there. I don't know why California is not there. They're having wildfires. But in the winter, if you check this pollution map, we'll be ranking way up there on number 1, 2, 3. So because Mongolians are so used to the pollution, and unless it's like this black haze, they think it's okay. Or unless if they can't smell it, it's like, oh yeah, it's fine. Oh, they look out the window and it's like, oh, there's no pollution, we'll go out. They don't actually are accustomed or trained to check the pollution level. So we want people to check the pollution level. And also, if you click on a specific sensor, you will have custom instructions. If it's bad, you have to check your monitor, you have to like open your windows or close your windows, or if you're having like, and then we have an option to check the outdoor and indoor sensors. We're planning to add more to increase the number of our sensors, so people can choose like, oh, what's the air quality outside, or what's the air quality inside. A lot of these indoor sensors are in schools and kindergartens. So ideally, we want to have enough sensors. We already have the capacity. So if we can just put those sensors and connect it to our system, parents can check, oh, what's the indoor air quality in my children's kindergarten or school class? And if it's bad inside, as bad as outside, there is a huge ventilation and huge insulation problem that people need to take action on, right? So main goal for our work is that we want to educate the public locally in Mongolia, and also raise awareness about this issue internationally, so people can collaborate across the borders to tackle this issue. And whatever we communicate, we want it to be actionable in real life. So if you're learning something, you always have to take action. And there are so many actions that one can take, and there are so many different resources available that so many organizations have put time and energy and money into it. We're just not aware of it. So we want the different stakeholders to collaborate and exchange knowledge and expertise with each other. And we want to train everybody to learn to hold our policymakers and decision makers accountable and make those very boring, very technical documents and information into digestible and actionable format. So it's a lot of work. I didn't realize how much work it's going to be. I didn't realize what a huge developmental challenge we took on. But it's super interesting and fascinating. I wake up every morning thinking about it. And I just finished a call with my team, and yeah, there's a lot to do. We're all doing it on a volunteer basis, but it's pretty much like a full-time tech startup job.
Well, we're glad you took it on, and I'm not able to share my screen without restarting Zoom, but I put the link to the Brave Mongolia website in the chat for anyone who wants to have a look at it. I think that this piece about government accountability is so important, and it's amazing that you're going to have all this information on the programs and evaluations of these programs on the website, because, another person that I interviewed for the chapter, she was saying, I understand that we need to take on debt to solve this problem. It's going to take money to solve this problem, but I don't want us to have air pollution and debt, So accountability is the key piece in that. Well, thank you so much for giving us the information. I want to open the floor now to anyone out there who has questions for you or for me.
Yeah, hi, it's Michael from Melbourne. So,
good day.
I was wondering whether they'd managed to transform the fuel supply to briquettes. So was the plan, was it? And you were skeptical about whether that had any impact or whether they've actually implemented that program. So, could you update that for us, please?
Yeah. So the raw coal ban was implemented last May 2019, and last winter was the first time people were pretty much forced to use the improved coal or the briquettes. And when we look at the numbers, what's interesting is, like, when we look at the numbers, the pollutant level went down, but the hospitalization numbers didn't go down. And also, I think, like, the PM 2.5, PM 2.10 or 2.5, and those particulate matters, they went down, but like the really fine ones, like PM1 and all the other gases, they didn't really change. So I think we still have a lot of work to do in terms of using those briquettes, and because they're different when it comes to the way it's being burned, there was quite a bit of carbon monoxide poisoning. People didn't have enough instructions on how to burn it properly, that their stove and chimneys were supposed to be cleaned super well. So there was lots of carbon monoxide incidents. So lots of activists and other people who were running for office, they said, we need to keep improving the quality of those briquettes. We need to keep, working super hard to make sure that citizens know how to use it. So I think it was a step in the right direction, but that's not the end of it. The current sentiment is that because it went down by a little bit, they think that it's done. They think the pollution is gone and we don't have to worry about it. Now we talk about soil pollution and other issues. But UNICEF said that the pollution level has to come down 90% for us to relax. So we still have a lot of work to do.
Hi, my name's Nick. I'm living in Japan, and one of my questions is, have you seen much growth and support from outside of UB? Not necessarily the countryside, but some of the other cities in like Dalangzagad or Dahan or Erdenet. Have you
Mhm.
seen support in some of the other cities, or is it primarily just in UB?
Support in what area?
Activists. So is this an
Mm,
issue in many
mm,
other cities, and are folks really taking this seriously in other cities as well?
mhm. I think it depends on province by province. Obviously, like 70% of the country lives in places where coal is burned. Actually, even though live in gears, province centers, each province center has a pollution problem, like Arhanga or the Gobi. It's not a UB problem. So that's one thing
Right.
that the entire all of Mongolians need to understand. And I'm from Erdenet, where this is where I grew up, and it's a problem over there now. We didn't have that problem before. And our partner organization want to put a pollution measuring station in Erdenet in other cities.
Mhm.
So I think other provinces are a little bit behind UB. Obviously, a lot of the work is concentrated on UB, and even the new regulation that just came out in June, the clean air zones, they only had to do with UB. So they had like 4 different zones. One of them says, you're not allowed to burn anything like wood, anything. You have to be connected to the grid. And the second one said that your district and your horas will be connected to the grid this year, that they're planned. And meanwhile, you can use improved coal for the briquette. And the third zone was that you can use improved coal. There was no plan to connect those gears to the grid, or the gear district to the grid. And the fourth one was Nalak district. It was the only district in Newbie that is allowed to burn raw coal. And there was no such clean air regulations in other cities that
Okay.
came from the government. But I know that even like in Gobi, where there is mining, they use coal. They use coal power plants. So wherever there's coal plant, wherever there's no, grid or renewable energy, there's coal.
Mhm.
And for example, UNICEF is doing a lot of work in Bayern Hongor. They're even testing out like 5-6 different sensors, and they're building like small, energy centers, and they're doing a lot of work with insulation in schools and kindergartens. So other AMECs and provinces are getting they're starting to get some attention, and people are becoming a little bit more and more aware of it. And I know people reached out to us from outside of UB, with their concerns that it's how bad their pollution is. They even sent us photos of how bad it is in their province. So I think some people are aware and concerned, but generally speaking, it's still not a topic that uh, that is spoken outside of UB.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes people think that because UB is so bad and their little province and city is nothing compared to UP, they don't realize it's still bad. It's still
Right.
above the safe level. Yeah. So we still have a lot of work to do it on the national level too.
Okay, thank you.
That's Michael again, if I can
Mhm.
squeeze in another question. When I was living there in 2017,
Oh, I think Michael's frozen. Okay, well, we can take another question, and if he unfreezes, we'll take it.
activism.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there you are, Michael. You were frozen.
Can you repeat your question?
Yes, I was asking about the mums and pups against pollution, or sort of
Mhm.
activist group
Mhm.
in Mongolia when I was living there, and they seem to be breaking through with a bit of sort of public activism against pollution, and whether that's escalated at all.
I think they did a pretty good job starting the conversation and just opening people's eyes, right? And their impact was not only within Mongolia, but also globally. I think that was one of the first times, where Mongolia's air pollution started being covered by the international media. And it even affected me personally, like on the other side of the world, that our movement started talking about it globally, and people outside of Mongolia and even different countries started caring about it. So we're definitely very thankful for their work, and they've been, I think, active in very many different areas. One of their founders, I think, ran for office this year, and I met her, I saw her at the UNICEF conference, so they're still actively involved in this case. And they try really hard to work directly with the government and bring up different proposals. Okay, we need to do this, we need to do this. So I hope they keep up their good work. And one of our purposes, one of our missions is to support such organizations, big and small, bring them all into one place in our community platform where they can learn about each other's work and support each other's work, and they don't duplicate and reinvent the wheel every time. One thing I noticed in Mongolia was that when UNICEF brought all of those different stakeholders together, many of them didn't know each other, and many of them didn't know about each other's work. So our challenge is to connect them and facilitate this collaboration and expertise and knowledge exchange. I met lots of different researchers who've done very important work, but their research work hasn't been publicized and uploaded anywhere. So we have a lot of work in supporting our other nonprofit organizations and empowering and enabling them.
Yeah, and Michael, Parents Against Smog is also in the book. I interviewed Pirafu, and I think, Azza, like what you're saying, I think they are great at lobbying government, and as much as you're able to get, facts and science-based proposals behind them, that might be a great way to work together, because they do command such a large network of people and activists who are interested and who will show up to protest when they need to.
Yeah, I think it's important. They do a great job at mobilizing the public, and they will need support in having support from different experts in the field.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, any other questions?
I've got one more, if you don't mind me being commandeering of all the time. My question is, what is your biggest obstacle right now? Is it lack of money? Is it lack of international support, lack of domestic support, lack of government accountability? What is the biggest thing that is holding your organization back from really taking a hard stance and pushing forward?
I was just talking about it with our project manager yesterday or 2 days ago, that we are very scattered around the world and we're doing it on a volunteer basis. So our next step is to fundraise quite drastically and have enough funds so we can employ people full time. And also we need to build a strong base in Mongolia, because in Mongolia, the salary isn't the greatest, and it's hard for people to put a lot of full-time effort or even part-time effort in work that doesn't pay. So if we have enough funds, we should be able to hire the right people and have more physical presence in Mongolia, because we already have the technical expertise. So yeah, we'd like to grow financially and employ more full-time people. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Sorry for stealing all the time.
Oh, no problem. That's what we're here for. Other questions? I see a lot of Mongolian names on the list.
What's next?
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I just want to say I'm so proud of you, and you do so much for Mongolia in so many different, fields, and I hope you inspire a lot of young people, and I think people are afraid of doing many things, but in your case, you just go and grab it and make it happen. So I'm so proud of you. And I know we are working on different things together as well. So yeah, looking forward to making a lot of things to happen.
Yeah, December 10th, Human Rights Day. Thank you.
Thanks, Ogna.
Any other questions, people? Also, I want to say, like, if you guys are interested in working with us, you're definitely welcome. I'm sure, you know, people who don't care about the issue or who are ignorant about the issue wouldn't be joining this session. So I'm sure you have your own talents and skills. So we're very open to work with everyone who's interested, especially if you have the science and the technical background. And we need journalists. And science educators and communicators, because we have so much technical and complicated information that we need to simplify it for the public and make it actionable and digestible.
One thing you might be able to give a bit of information or insight on, I was always curious about whether there were many trade unions in Mongolia. I mean, I have a trade union background myself from Australia and activism that way. And so I'm wondering whether sort of occupational health and safety standards, where they fit into these things, and whether working people are good allies to have in air pollution fights as well.
Yeah, definitely. We have to attack it from all kinds of angles, right? Last year there was a new organization that was created. They're the Indoor Air Quality Association, because obviously indoor air is, we don't have indoor air standard. We don't have indoor air quality standard. We have it for outdoor air, ambient air, but we don't have it for indoor. So that group is working to lobby the government, come up with regulations and standards that indoor air should be at a certain level, and there shouldn't be all these VOCs, and there should be all kinds of standards in different workplaces. For example, when I was in Mongolia last year, I visited my relative. They had a window making factory, or in a warehouse, and I could just smell the fume of all these different chemicals. And my relative's office was right next to the factory. There was no separate insulated space, and she was just breathing it all in every day. And her kids were working there, and nobody was wearing a mask. So I was so traumatized to see that. And I was like, oh no, like, you have to keep doing this. You need to insulate this, you need to ventilate this, and let me connect you to the professionals who can measure your indoor air quality and tell you exactly what to do to protect your health. So there is very little knowledge about occupational safety when it comes to air quality as well. So there's a lot of work to do in that area. And there was a recent study that was published on Harvard, said that, you know, healthy indoor air quality contributes to workplace productivity. So we need to have our employees and employers in Mongolia to start caring about indoor air, because it doesn't matter, you know, the ambient air or the outdoor air quality isn't going to improve overnight. So one thing that we can control and invest in should be the indoor air quality and the insulation and proper ventilation in our infrastructure.
Thanks, Asa. Anyone else? Any final questions?
Hi.
Hi, Maya.
Hi. My name is Maya. I study in Japan. I study about urban planning. So I have one question. What do you think that we or the government should do in the Gir area to reduce air pollution? You know, the Gir area is expanding chaotically. So what do you think urban planners should do?
Mm-hmm. I'm not an urban planning professional, obviously, And I think the professionals will have better opinion and point of view on that. But I think the first challenge we have to prioritize is to develop the countrysides, the province centers, so that we don't have this chaotic urban migration. When I talk to people who moved into the city from the countryside, all of them miss their homes, they miss their, provinces, they miss their birthplace and their families. They'd rather be in the countryside with their family, out in the open space, breathing clean air, but there's no jobs, there's no educational opportunities, and there isn't much going on where they are from. So I think we should definitely heavily invest in opportunities for the province centers, and even in Assam. Ideally, I want all Mongolians to live wherever they're born if they want to, and have access to sanitation, have access to basic human needs, in education and work, and all kinds of global opportunities, especially with technology. They should be able to work from their Som in province center and do coding work for IBM or something, right? So ideally, that should be the first solution, because it's not only contributing to air pollution and environmental and social issues, but it's also contributing to the loss of our culture. When I talk to different ethnic musicians, they'd rather be home close to the nature. But all of the ethnic, intangible, cultural and bearers, they are in the city and they're doing something else to survive. And they're not close to their roots to keep developing that art. So definitely one of them is the local rural economic development, and to deal with what's already been done in UB, forcing people to move into apartments is not the solution. Some people want to, but a lot of them don't want to move into the apartment. They want to have their own backyard. So I think we need to give them the resources and tools to be as self-sufficient as possible when it comes to sanitation. There are lots of solutions now with eco latrines and all of that. And also, like, the government officials, when they invest in infrastructure, like, they build super nice roads to where they live and their children live in Dasang. They can whip out, grid right away and clean water into those areas in a matter of weeks if they want to, because it affects them directly. But they don't prioritize investing in infrastructure and roads in the Gir district. So I think what's most important is Gir district citizens being educated about this issue, and then, uniting and demanding accountability and demanding action from the policymakers. And they need to have a place on decision-making level. I think because they know best what's good for them, right? And the real solutions should be coming from people who live in that area, not from somebody who's at the parliament seat who's never been there. So we need to really empower and equip local community leaders in Gir district and work with them to improve their living situations in that area. I noticed when I visited Gir district, there's not enough schools and kindergartens in the area. So lots of children just stay home, locked out without any supervision, because parents have to go to work. And some can't even afford like a bus tickets to take their kids to the kindergarten and schools. So actually the other nonprofit that I work for, we're building community centers, libraries and internet cafes and classrooms in Gir district. So children in Gir district have the same opportunity to thrive as children in the UB center. Does that answer your questions for a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for sharing your opinion.
Yeah. So everything has to be human-centered and built with on a systemic level with empathy for the local residents.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maya. And the other organization that Aza is speaking about, Lantern Dohyo, is also featured in the book. It's in the feminism chapter because they got their start working in preventing human trafficking.
Yeah, we have male feminists in Mongolia, in case you were wondering.
Many of them, actually.
Yeah.
So any other questions before we wrap it up? Okay, thank you so much, Aza, for speaking with us today. And thank you all of you who tuned in to get more information about Mongolia generally, the air pollution problem specifically. If you are interested in reading my book, you can go to youngmongols.com and order yourself a copy of it. As I mentioned at the beginning, they're having some distribution issues because of COVID, but if you have a Kindle, you can read it from anywhere, or you can get it in Southeast Asia, or I have some copies in the US that I can mail you if you're in the US, but it costs a fortune to ship outside of the US, I found out. And you can follow us on Facebook, follow Read Mongolia on Facebook. Yeah, Aza has it. I can't wait to hear what your thoughts on it, Aza. So
I loved it.
Oh, good. That's great. I think you're the first Mongolian who's actually read it. So I have to get your feedback after the call. So thank you all. I'm going to be doing more of these discussions with different people who are featured in the book on different topics. So follow the Facebook page to get announcements about that, and look forward to speaking with you again. Thanks, Aza. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. I put my email and LinkedIn in the comments, so if you guys want to connect afterwards, let's talk.
Great. Good luck, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.